A billionaire marries a waitress in a contract union, until her honesty transforms his life. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. Rain slid down the tall windows of the Ridgeview Lounge, streaking the glass like silver threads. Inside, the low hum of conversation blended with the clink of crystal glasses, the soft glow of golden lamps reflecting off polished marble. It was the kind of place where million-dollar contracts were signed over a single glance, and reputations were either built or destroyed in one evening. At the far corner table sat Ethan Ward, the billionaire CEO of Ward Enterprises. His posture was controlled, his charcoal suit immaculate, but his jaw was tense enough to show that tonight was not a night he chose. It was a night he was forced into. The board had delivered an ultimatum: stabilize his public image or lose voting control. After his brother's scandal, the company wanted a symbolic marriage, something responsible, something family-centric. To them, emotions were irrelevant. Optics were everything. Across the room, wiping down a row of empty wine glasses, stood Lena Hart, a waitress working the late shift. Her hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, her uniform slightly faded, and the soles of her shoes were worn thin. But her eyes carried a quiet steadiness, the kind that came from long weeks of double shifts and the unspoken worry that rent was due again. She had never spoken to Ethan beyond routine greetings, yet she had always been polite, respectful, and almost invisible in the way service workers often are in upscale places. Tonight, however, Ethan's gaze followed her in a way it never had before, not because of attraction or curiosity, but because his assistant had just informed him that the woman scheduled to meet him for the proposed contract marriage had backed out at the last minute. His carefully engineered plan had just collapsed. A sharp ache settled behind his eyes. He needed a solution immediately, something clean, something controlled, someone who had no connection to the media, no corporate agenda, and no desire to meddle in his world. Someone who could keep a secret. As Lena passed his table with a tray of sparkling water, Ethan's voice cut through the clatter of the bar. "Miss Hart, a moment, please." She froze, startled. No CEO ever addressed a waitress by name unless it involved a complaint. She set the tray down and approached cautiously, hands clasped together to keep them steady. "Is everything all right, sir?" Ethan studied her with the same precision he brought into every negotiation. She looked honest, direct, tired, perhaps, but grounded. And most importantly, she had never once tried to get close to him like so many others in his orbit did. "Sit," he said gently, gesturing to the chair across from him. Lena blinked. "Sir, I am working. I could get in trouble." "Your manager will not object," Ethan replied. "I spoke with him already." Confusion flickered in her eyes, but she sat carefully, folding her hands in her lap. "What do you need, Mr. Ward?" Ethan leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I am going to say something unusual. I need you to hear all of it before you respond." Lena nodded slowly. "All right." He exhaled once, steady and controlled. "I need a wife. Specifically, I need a wife for 1 year. It is a legal arrangement, a contract. You will not be asked for emotional involvement or physical intimacy. You will be compensated, and all terms will be clear and binding." For a full second, the world around them seemed to go silent. No clinking glasses, no murmuring guests. Only Lena, staring at him as though he had spoken another language. I am sorry," she whispered. "Are you joking?" "No," Ethan said with complete seriousness. "This is a business arrangement. Not romance, not sentiment. I need someone I can trust, someone with no hidden agenda." "You were the first name that came to mind." Her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and a sudden rush of fear. "Why me? I am just a waitress." "That is precisely why," Ethan replied. "You are honest, straightforward. You do your work without manipulation. That is rarer than you think in my world." Lena looked down at her hands, her thoughts spiraling. Rent. her mother's medical bills in Denver, the second job she had just lost. Survival had always been a quiet war in her life, and tonight that war felt closer than ever. Ethan watched her carefully. You do not need to decide now. I will prepare a contract for you to read. If you choose to accept, we proceed. If not, nothing changes. You continue your job, and this conversation remains confidential. Lena lifted her gaze again, meeting the eyes of a man who could reshape an entire city, yet sat before her asking for something human, something vulnerable, wrapped in the cold language of a deal. She swallowed hard. What exactly would I be agreeing to, Mr. Ward? Ethan folded his hands. To step into a world that will judge you, watch you, and question why a billionaire chose a woman outside his social circle. But I will protect you, and I will treat you with respect. Above all, the agreement will benefit you as much as it benefits me. Outside, thunder rolled softly across the city, the kind that echoed through the windows like a distant warning. Lena exhaled slowly. Then let me see the contract. Rain continued to tap against the windows of the Ridgeview Lounge long after closing, but Lena barely noticed the weather as she walked home. Her mind replayed Ethan Ward's words again and again, each sentence heavier than the last. A contract marriage. 1 year. Protection. Compensation. It sounded unreal. Something out of a world she had only seen from the sidelines of expensive dining rooms and corporate holiday parties she served drinks at. Yet the seriousness in Ethan's eyes told her it was not a fantasy. It was a lifeline offered in the most unthinkable form. By the time she reached her small apartment, her feet ached, and her uniform smelled faintly of citrus cleaner, but she did not change. She sat at the tiny kitchen table where a single lamp cast a warm but tired glow. An envelope sat on the table, unopened since that afternoon. It was the final notice from her landlord. She traced the edge with her thumb, feeling the unevenness of the paper as if it were a bruise. Rent was due in 2 days. Her savings were barely enough for groceries, and her mother's hospital in Denver had called earlier, reminding her of an unpaid balance. Each problem pressed down on her chest like stacked weights. Lena rested her forehead against her palms. She was 27, working double shifts, scraping together tips to stay afloat. She did not have a college degree. She did not have a safety net. She had no one to call at midnight and confess that she was drowning. What she did have was a billionaire CEO offering an arrangement she did not understand, one that felt like a storm hovering above her life, waiting for her to step forward or step back. The next morning began like every other one before it. The sun rose faintly through the blinds, casting pale stripes across her living room floor. She showered quickly, tied her hair back, and walked 15 minutes to the cafe down the street that sold day-old pastries at a discount. She bought a muffin and a small coffee, then checked her phone. There were no new messages, no job offers, no miracles hiding in her inbox. When she arrived at the Ridgeview Lounge for her shift, the manager pulled her aside. Ethan Ward wants to see you. Executive office upstairs. Her heart lurched. Now? Yes. He said it will be brief. Lena wiped her hands on her apron before climbing the stairs. Her pulse thrummed in her ears. She never entered the executive floor before. The carpet was thicker, the lighting softer, and the walls lined with framed awards from Ward Enterprises. When she reached the glass door, she knocked once. "Come in," Ethan's voice said from inside. She opened the door and saw him at his desk, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms. A leather folder sat in front of him. He looked up, his expression unreadable but calm. "Good morning, Lena," he said. "Please, take a seat." She sat, her palms cold against her knees. "You asked to see me?" "Yes." Ethan opened the folder and slid a document toward her. "This is the contract I mentioned. Every term is laid out clearly. I want you to read this without pressure. You are free to agree or decline." Her eyes scanned the front page. It was more real than she expected. Legal language, compensation terms, privacy clauses, public appearance schedules. A clear statement of no emotional obligation. It was clinical but not predatory. Ethan spoke carefully, his tone steady. "I want to make one thing absolutely clear. You are not being trapped. You are not being used. You are being offered a partnership that is mutually beneficial, and if you ever feel unsafe or uncomfortable, the agreement can be terminated." Lena swallowed, her throat tightening. Why are you trusting me with something this enormous? Ethan leaned back slightly. Because you do not want anything from me except what is fair. You do not flatter. You do not manipulate. In my world, that is almost extinct. She looked down at the contract again. The words blurred briefly, then sharpened. The offer was outrageous, but her life was already slipping through her fingers like water. If she said no, she knew exactly what would happen. Eviction, overdue bills, and another desperate search for work that never paid enough. Ethan's voice broke through her thoughts. You do not need to answer today. Take it home. Think with a clear mind. When you are ready, we will talk again. Lena nodded slowly and stood, holding the folder against her chest. Thank you, Mr. Ward. I will read it carefully. As she stepped out of the office and walked down the quiet hallway, the weight of the decision settled over her. The document in her hands was more than paper. It was a door. And once she opened it, her life would never look the same again. Lena did not sleep that night. The contract folder lay open on her bed, its pages spread like a map leading into a world she had never imagined entering. She read each clause again and again until the words settled into her mind with a strange clarity. Ethan Ward had not lied. Everything was outlined with precision: duration, conditions, protections, and compensation. Nothing was hidden. Nothing was ambiguous. Yet the very simplicity of it made the choice even heavier. By dawn, a pale orange light filtered through her blinds. She sat on the edge of her bed, clutching a mug of warm tea. Her apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. The stillness contrasted sharply with the storm of thoughts raging inside her. She imagined her mother in a Denver hospital room, the medical bills piling higher. She imagined packing her belongings into cardboard boxes if eviction came. She imagined working 3 jobs again, barely seeing daylight. Survival had always been a practical equation in her life, not a romantic one. Just after 9 in the morning, she folded the contract neatly and slipped it into her bag. If she was going to make a choice, she needed to see Ethan one more time. She needed to look him in the eyes and confirm he was truly the man he presented in that office, controlled, serious, but not cruel. When she arrived at the Ridgeview Lounge, the day shift had already begun. The manager saw her hesitating by the staircase and nodded. "He is upstairs," he said, to let you through. Her heartbeat quickened as she climbed the steps. She knocked on his office door, gripping the strap of her bag with both hands. "Come in," Ethan said. He stood by the window, phone set aside, his attention sliding to her the moment she entered. The skyline behind him cast a soft, silver glow around his silhouette. Lena stepped closer, trying to steady her breathing. "I finished reading it," she said quietly. Ethan gestured to the chair. "Sit, please. Tell me your thoughts." She sat but did not release her bag. "You were honest in every part of the contract. It is clear. It is more considerate than I expected. But I need to know something before I decide." Ethan nodded once. "Ask." Lena looked straight at him, her voice steady but vulnerable. "If I sign this, will you treat me like a person or just an accessory to your life?" A flicker of emotion crossed Ethan's eyes, so brief she almost missed it. He moved closer, resting his hands gently on the back of the opposite chair. "You will be treated with respect every single day," he said. "I do not need a puppet or a prop. I need someone who can stand beside me without pretending to be something else. That is why I came to you." Her breath eased slightly, but her pulse still hammered. "And what if your board does not approve of your choice?" "They will not choose your worth," Ethan replied. "I will handle any issues that arise. You will not be targeted or questioned without my protection." Lena stared at the folder in her lap. The weight of her decision pressed into her shoulders. She thought of her mother again. She thought of the landlord's warning taped to her door. She thought of the exhausted version of herself in the mirror every night, wondering how long she could keep going. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but firm. "I will do it." Ethan did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply nodded once, as if acknowledging a solemn pact. "Then we proceed with transparency." He reached for a pen and slid it to her. The contract lay open between them. Lena took a slow breath and signed her name with a hand that trembled more than she wanted him to notice. The pen felt heavier than it should have, like a symbol of everything she was leaving behind and everything she was stepping into. When she lifted her head, Ethan quietly signed his own copy. The soft scratch of his pen echoed across the room. 2 signatures, 2 lives crossing under the cold logic of ink and paper. He closed the folder and said, "The ceremony will be held this evening. It will be private. Afterward, you will move into the residence for consistency with public expectations." Lena inhaled shakily. "This evening?" "Yes. Momentum is important," he replied calmly. "A car will pick you up at your apartment at 6. Your attire will be provided." She stood slowly, her legs stiff, her heartbeat loud. Ethan walked her to the door, not touching her but maintaining a respectful distance. "Thank you, Lena," he said. "I know this decision was not easy." She paused at the doorway, her fingers brushing the frame. "Neither is the life I am living now." Their eyes met for a moment, his steady, hers unsure, and then she stepped out into the hallway. The door closed softly behind her. As she descended the stairs, a new reality settled around her like a quiet storm. Tonight, she would sign more than a contract. She would cross the threshold into a world where nothing belonged to her, yet everything demanded her presence. And once she stepped into that world, there would be no turning back. The afternoon moved faster than Lena expected. By the time she returned to her apartment, the sky outside had shifted to a dim gray, and the city lights were beginning to flicker on one by one. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, letting the quiet settle around her. There was no turning back now. Her signature was on the contract. Her future was no longer hers alone to steer. At exactly 5:30, a soft knock came at her door. When she opened it, a woman in a tailored navy suit stood waiting, her posture straight and professional, holding a white garment bag over one arm. "Good evening. I am here on behalf of Mr. Ward," she said. "This is your attire for the ceremony. The driver will arrive in 30 minutes. Lena accepted the bag, her palms sweating as she closed the door again. The apartment felt even smaller than usual, every shadow stretching as if watching her. She unzipped the garment bag carefully. Inside was a simple ivory dress made of soft satin, elegant without being extravagant. The kind of dress meant for a ceremony that was not romantic but still required dignity. She changed slowly, smoothing the fabric over her hips and adjusting the neckline. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror looked unfamiliar, clean, understated, almost fragile. She applied light makeup with steady hands, tying her hair into a low bun. For a moment she just stared, trying to recognize the woman preparing to enter a contract marriage with a billionaire. At 6 on the dot, another knock came. This time a driver stood at the door, his expression polite and neutral. "Miss Hart? The car is ready." Lena grabbed her small purse and followed him outside. A sleek black sedan waited at the curb, its engine humming quietly. As she stepped inside, she looked once more at her apartment building, brick walls, narrow stairwells, windows that never quite shut properly. This was the life she was leaving behind for 1 year. The car glided through the city streets, headlights washing over the wet pavement. The drive was silent except for the steady beat of her heart. When the vehicle finally slowed, she saw the courthouse ahead, illuminated under soft yellow lighting. The building stood tall and solemn, as if aware of the weight of the decisions made within it. Ethan was already inside, speaking with a clerk. He wore a charcoal suit, and his presence seemed to fill the room even when he stood still. When he turned and saw her, something subtle changed in his expression. An acknowledgement, a quiet realization that this moment was real for both of them. "Good evening, Lena," he said. "You look appropriate. Thank you for being punctual." His words were formal, but his tone carried a hint of softness she had not heard before. "Thank you," she replied quietly. A judge entered the small ceremonial room, flipping through a thin folder. There were no flowers, no guests, no music, just the 3 of them and the echo of footsteps across the marble floor. The judge cleared his throat and began reading the vows in a measured, emotionless voice. "Do you, Ethan James Ward, take Lena Hart to be your lawfully wedded wife for the duration stated in the contract, under the terms agreed upon by both parties?" "I do," Ethan said, his voice calm and sure. The judge turned to her. "And do you, Lena Hart, agree to enter this union under the same terms, upholding the agreement in full?" Lena inhaled slowly. "I do." The judge signed the certificate, handed it to Ethan's attorney, and nodded. You are now legally married. The entire process took less than 10 minutes, yet Lena felt as if time had stretched and folded around her. She stood there with a ring sliding into place on her finger, a symbol without meaning, yet still heavy. Ethan extended his hand. She placed hers in his, unsure what expression was appropriate. Congratulations, he said with controlled politeness. From this moment forward, we have a public arrangement. I expect professionalism and discretion. Yes, Mr. Ward, she replied. His gaze held hers for a moment. Ethan is fine when we are alone. The car awaited outside. As they stepped into the cool evening, rain drizzled lightly, tapping against the pavement. The driver opened the door, and they entered the sedan together. Silence filled the space between them, heavy but not hostile. When the car turned north, Lena caught her first glimpse of the Ward estate through the fogged window, an imposing mansion of white stone, lit softly from within like a fortress of wealth and quiet judgment. Ethan glanced at her once. Welcome to your new residence. Lena's fingers tightened slightly around the ring on her hand. Nothing about this world belonged to her. Not yet, maybe not ever. But she was in it now, and she would learn how to stand within it. The Ward estate felt impossibly large as Lena followed Ethan through the grand foyer. Soft lighting glowed across polished marble floors, and the quiet hum of the air system made the entire house feel insulated from the outside world. Portraits lined the walls, each one depicting a member of the Ward family with the kind of confidence that came from generations of wealth. Lena kept her hands close to her sides, afraid to brush against anything that looked more valuable than her entire apartment. A housekeeper approached with a respectful nod. Good evening, Mr. Ward. Mrs. Ward. The guest suite has been prepared. Lena stiffened slightly at the title. Mrs. Ward. It sounded too heavy, too official, like a label she had not earned. Ethan noticed the shift in her expression but did not comment. Show her the room, Ethan said, and make sure everything she requested earlier is arranged. The housekeeper nodded again and motioned for Lena to follow. Ethan remained in the foyer, removing his jacket with a quiet exhale. The walk down the hallway felt unreal. Soft rugs covered the floors, and each step seemed to sink into silence. When they reached the guest suite, the housekeeper opened the door with a gentle smile. This will be your room, Mrs. Ward. If you need anything, please ring the service phone. Lena stepped inside. The room was larger than her entire apartment. A king-size bed sat in the middle, framed by tall windows overlooking the garden. A small seating area near the fireplace held 2 cream-colored chairs and a table set with a silver tray of tea. She swallowed, overwhelmed. Thank you. This is very generous. The housekeeper nodded softly and closed the door behind her, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts. She stood there for a long moment before sinking onto the edge of the bed. The mattress was so soft she felt as if she might disappear into it. Her new life had begun, and she was not sure where she fit inside it. A light knock sounded at the door. Lena? Ethan's voice carried through the crack. She stood quickly. You can come in. He entered, but did not step far. He kept a respectful distance, folding his hands loosely in front of him. I wanted to check that the room is acceptable, he said. It is more than acceptable, she replied. I do not know how to thank you. You do not need to thank me. This arrangement benefits us both. She nodded, though her heart still raced. Ethan studied her quietly, his expression serious but not unkind. There are a few things we should go over, he continued. Starting tomorrow morning, the staff will be informed of our public arrangement. They will treat you with respect, but they are also trained to maintain confidentiality. If you ever feel uncomfortable, tell me immediately. Lena's fingers curled gently at her sides. I understand. You will also receive a schedule for upcoming public appearances, Ethan said, nothing too overwhelming at first. We will ease you into events gradually. She tried to imagine herself standing beside him at a corporate dinner or a charity gala. It felt like imagining another person's life, someone with far more experience and far fewer fears. Ethan's voice softened slightly. You will not be alone in this. I will guide you. Those words surprised her. They were simple, but they held something steady beneath the surface. A reassurance she did not expect from a man who had built his life on control and detachment. Lena took a slow breath. Thank you. I will do my best. I know you will. Ethan said. For a moment, silence settled between them, not uncomfortable but delicate. Then he took one small step back, signaling the end of the conversation. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. She nodded. Good night, Ethan. He hesitated only half a second before replying. Good night, Lena. The door closed quietly behind him. Lena looked around the room once more, then walked to the window. The garden lights shimmered against the dark night, casting long reflections across the glass. She touched the ring lightly on her finger, feeling the cool metal beneath her skin. She was not a guest. She was not a wife. She was something in between, walking a line she could not afford to fall from. Tomorrow she would learn how to stand in this world. Tonight she let herself breathe. Lena woke before sunrise, the soft glow from the garden lights still stretching across her bedroom floor. For a moment she forgot where she was. The bed was too soft, the air too still, and the faint scent of jasmine drifting through the vents was nothing like her small apartment. Then the weight of the ring on her finger reminded her. This was not a dream. She was living inside a contract, one she had agreed to because her life outside these walls had left her almost no choice. At 7 o'clock sharp, a gentle knock sounded on her door. Mrs. Ward, a voice called politely. Lena opened the door to find the same housekeeper from the night before holding a printed schedule. Good morning. Mr. Ward asked me to bring you your agenda for today. Lena accepted the pages, thanking her softly. Once alone, she scanned the schedule. Breakfast at 8, orientation with Ethan at 9, media training at 11, lunch with Ethan at 1, a wardrobe fitting at 3, a brief appearance with his board liaison at 5. It was already more structure than her previous life had ever demanded. She dressed carefully in the clothes provided in her closet, simple, elegant pieces in neutral colors. When she slipped into the dining room, Ethan was already there, seated at the end of a long table set with polished silverware and porcelain dishes. He looked collected, as if he had been awake for hours. Good morning, Lena, he said. Good morning, she replied, taking a seat across from him. Breakfast passed quietly at first, the clink of utensils echoing softly. Finally, Ethan set down his coffee. There is something I need to tell you, he said. It concerns what we will face publicly. Lena straightened, bracing herself. I am listening. He folded his hands, the morning light catching the edge of his cufflinks. My board is already skeptical of my decisions. They will question our marriage. They will assume it is purely strategic. They may try to undermine you or use you to undermine me. You will hear whispers and rumors. It will not be pleasant. A faint chill ran over her skin. Are you saying they will attack me? They will attempt to make you feel unworthy, Ethan said with quiet honesty. It is their way of testing control, but I will not allow them to harm you. You need to know what lies ahead. Lena breathed in slowly. She had expected judgment from the press, but the idea of powerful executives scrutinizing her every move felt even more intimidating. Thank you for warning me, she said. Ethan nodded. That is why I set today's meetings. You will learn how to navigate this world with confidence. At 9, they moved to his office, where folders and charts spread across a large conference table. Ethan walked her through the basics of his company, explaining key players, upcoming events, and how their public story needed to appear. His tone remained steady, never condescending. At 11, a poised woman named Caroline from his public relations team arrived to guide Lena through media etiquette. She demonstrated how to stand beside Ethan for photographs, how to respond to direct questions, and how to politely deflect invasive ones. Confidence is your shield, Caroline said. If you waver, they will notice. By 1 o'clock, Lena felt her mind heavy with information. She ate lunch with Ethan in a smaller dining room, quieter and less formal than the morning meal. When she struggled to remember the name of one of his board members, he corrected her gently rather than sharply. It will take time, he said. You are learning quickly. His approval surprised her. She was not used to praise, especially not from someone who carried power so effortlessly. At 3, a stylist arrived for wardrobe fittings. Racks of dresses, jackets, and tailored outfits filled her suite. The stylist explained the colors most suitable for public events and the silhouettes that appeared confident without seeming ostentatious. When it was over, Lena finally had a moment alone. She sat on the edge of the bed, inhaling deeply. The day had been overwhelming, but she had survived it. And beneath the exhaustion, she felt something unexpected, a small sense of progress. At 5, Ethan knocked on her door again. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded, smoothing the front of her clothes. They walked together toward the small reception room where his board liaison waited. The man was tall, strict-looking, and his gaze examined Lena with a quick sweep she felt immediately. "So," he said, "this is the new Mrs. Ward." Lena lifted her chin slightly, remembering everything Caroline had taught her. "It is very nice to meet you." The liaison's eyes narrowed with faint skepticism. He offered a curt nod, but nothing more. Ethan stepped slightly closer to her, his presence solid and protective. The meeting was brief, but Lena felt the tension long after it ended. As they walked back toward the main hall, Ethan's voice cut through the silence. "You handled that well," he said. "Better than some executives I have worked with." Lena exhaled softly. "Thank you." But it was intimidating. "It will get easier," Ethan said. "You are stronger than you think." She looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his tone. For the first time, she realized Ethan Ward was not simply a man of contracts and conditions. He was someone who had built walls so high he rarely saw beyond them, and she had just spent the entire day standing inside the space those walls created. As they reached her door, he paused. "Tomorrow will be tougher," he said, "but I will be with you." She nodded, her voice quiet. "I will be ready." Ethan gave a small, almost imperceptible nod before walking away. When the door closed behind her, Lena placed a hand over her heart, feeling the echo of his words settling deep inside her. This was no longer just an arrangement. It was the beginning of something far more complex. The following morning began with gray clouds stretching across the sky, casting a muted light over the Ward estate. Lena dressed carefully, choosing one of the simple outfits the stylist had recommended. She tied her hair back neatly and steadied her breathing before stepping out into the hallway. Today was her first official public introduction to Ethan's inner circle. It was not a large event, but it was important. It would set the tone for how the board, their families, and the press viewed her. At 8:30, Ethan met her in the foyer. He wore a tailored navy suit, his expression composed and unreadable. But when he looked at her, something softened in his eyes, something small but unmistakably human. "Good morning, Lena," he said. "Are you ready?" "As ready as I can be," she replied. He nodded. "Then we will face this together." The ride to the corporate building was quiet. Lena watched the city through the tinted windows, feeling like a stranger passing through a life that was not entirely hers. When they arrived, photographers were already gathering outside, despite the event being limited. Their cameras clicked rapidly the moment Ethan stepped out of the car. He reached back and offered his hand to help her exit. She hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. His grip was steady, grounding. Inside the building, a small reception awaited them. Members of the board were present, along with several executives and their spouses. Conversations quieted the moment Lena stepped into the room. Some smiled politely. Others offered thin, assessing glances. A few did not smile at all. Ethan guided her forward. "Everyone, this is my wife, Lena Ward." Those words my wife echoed louder than the chatter that followed. Lena offered a polite greeting, remembering Caroline's instructions. "Stand tall, speak clearly, maintain steady eye contact." A woman with perfectly styled blonde hair approached first. "So this is the woman who captured Ethan's attention," she said with a sharp smile. "You must be adjusting quickly. It is quite the leap from service work to this." Lena felt the sting behind the woman's tone, but she inhaled and steadied herself. "It is certainly a change, but I am grateful for the opportunity to learn." Ethan stepped closer, his jaw tightening. "Lena has handled the transition with dignity, more than can be said for others who were born into this world." The woman's smile faltered, and she drifted away. Lena glanced at Ethan, surprised by his directness. He did not look at her, but she could see the tension in his posture. As the morning continued, more guests approached. Some were genuinely kind, others clearly testing her composure, probing for weaknesses. One executive asked bluntly, "So, how did you and Ethan meet?" The question was casual on the surface but heavy underneath, as if he hoped she would slip. Lena answered carefully. "Our paths crossed at the right time." I respect Ethan, and we support each other in this partnership. A murmur rippled through the group. Ethan looked at her then, just briefly, but long enough for her to see something warm flicker behind his controlled exterior. But not everyone was satisfied. Midway through the gathering, an older board member stepped forward. His voice carried authority, and his gaze was cold enough to make Lena's shoulders tense. "Mr. Ward," he said, "I must be frank, this marriage is raising questions. Choosing someone without corporate or social pedigree will complicate many negotiations. Is this truly in the company's best interest?" The room fell silent. Ethan's expression hardened. "My personal life is not subject to board approval." The board member raised an eyebrow. "But your marriage affects the company's reputation. We have concerns." Lena felt dozens of eyes shift toward her. Whispered doubts buzzed at the edges of the room. Her heart pounded, but she stood still. She had been warned about moments like this. She had prepared. Still, hearing it directly, hearing herself questioned so openly, cut deeper than she expected. Ethan stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of her. "Lena is my wife. That is all anyone needs to know. She deserves respect." The board member's lips tightened. "Respect is earned." Lena inhaled, steadying her pulse. She spoke before the tension could tighten further. "Then I will earn it." Every head turned toward her. Ethan's eyes widened just slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. The board member regarded her a long moment, then gave a curt nod and walked away. Conversations slowly resumed around them, but the atmosphere had shifted. Some people looked impressed, others annoyed. Ethan remained silent until the crowd thinned and only a few lingered in the corners of the room. He turned to her. "You handled that better than many would." "I said what felt right," she said quietly. "You did more than that," Ethan replied. "You held your ground." Lena exhaled, her nerves finally settling. "It was not easy." "No," Ethan said, a hint of emotion in his voice. "But neither is this life." They walked toward the exit together. As they stepped outside into the cool afternoon air, Lena felt the strain of the morning settle in her shoulders. Ethan glanced at her once more. "Today was a test," he said. "Unfortunately, not the last." Lena nodded. "I know. For what it is worth," he added, "you did not stand alone." His words lingered long after the cameras flashed again, and as they entered the car, the distance between them felt a little smaller than it had the day before. The ride back to the Ward estate was quiet, but it was not the strained silence Lena feared. It was a thoughtful silence, a space where both she and Ethan were processing the tension of the morning. When they stepped into the foyer, the house felt unusually still, as if waiting for something to unfold. Ethan set his keys on the console table. "You should rest for a moment," he said. "Events like that drain even the most seasoned executives." Lena nodded, but before she could respond, a familiar voice rang out from the staircase. "So, it is true. You actually went through with it." A man in his early 30s descended the stairs. His dark hair was slightly tousled, his tie undone, and there was a look of sharp irritation in his eyes. Lena recognized him immediately. Ethan's younger brother, Daniel Ward. She had seen him in the corporate briefing documents during her orientation, but she had never met him. Daniel stopped at the bottom of the stairs and crossed his arms. "A waitress, Ethan? Really?" Ethan's posture stiffened. "Daniel, this is not the moment." "Then when?" Daniel shot back. "You brought a stranger into this family without consulting anyone. This affects the company, our board, and all of us." Lena swallowed hard. She had expected judgment, but not like this, not so direct, not so personal. Ethan stepped forward slowly. "Lena is my wife, legally and publicly. You will speak to her with respect," Daniel scoffed. "Respect? You barely know her, and neither does anyone else. Do you really trust that her intentions are pure?" Lena felt her chest tighten, but she stood her ground. "I am not here to harm anyone," she said quietly, "or take anything that is not mine." Daniel turned to her with a cold smirk. "Everyone says that when they first step into money." Ethan's voice cut sharply through the room. "Enough." For a long moment, the brothers stared at each other, tension crackling like electric wires. Finally, Daniel huffed and walked toward the bar, grabbing a glass and pouring himself water. "This will blow up in your face," he muttered, "and when it does, the board will not be forgiving." Ethan ignored him and turned to Lena. Come with me. He led her into his office and closed the door gently behind them. The air inside was calmer, steadier. Lena sank onto the small leather sofa, her hands trembling slightly. I am sorry you had to experience that, Ethan said. Daniel has always resented my position. He sees this marriage as an opportunity to undermine me. Is he dangerous? Lena asked. Not physically, Ethan replied, but he is unpredictable. He looks for weaknesses. He will test you. Lena nodded slowly. That is what today felt like, a test. Ethan sat across from her, leaning forward. You passed every single one. She blinked, surprised by the warmth in his tone. I did not feel like I passed anything. You did, he said. You stood with composure. You answered with clarity. You did not let anyone diminish you. That takes strength. Lena lowered her gaze, a faint heat rising to her cheeks. I was terrified. So was I, Ethan admitted quietly. She looked up sharply. This was the first time he had revealed something vulnerable without being pushed. Ethan Ward, the man who held entire boardrooms in silence, the man who built a fortress of control around every part of his life, was admitting fear. Why? She asked softly. Because I did not want you to be hurt, he said. Those words settled in the space between them, delicate and real. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. Ethan glanced at it, then set it face down without reading the message. Lena, he said slowly, what happened today? What you endured? It made me realize that this contract may have started as a necessity, but it no longer feels like just a strategy. Her breath caught. What does it feel like? Ethan stood, walked to the window, and exhaled. Like the first honest thing in my life in a very long time. The room fell silent. Lena stood as well, her hands trembling slightly. Ethan. He turned toward her, and for the first time since the day they met, the guarded lines in his expression eased. He took a slow, careful step toward her. You have shown me more integrity in a few days than most people have shown me in years, he said. You have faced judgment, pressure, and scrutiny without losing yourself. He paused, searching her face. I respect you, and I want this partnership to become something real, not because the company demands it, but because I do. Lena felt her heart thudding against her ribs. Are you saying you want more than the contract? Yes, Ethan said, but only if you want the same. She stepped closer, her voice steady but full of emotion. I want something real too, but I want to build it honestly. Ethan nodded slowly. Then let us build it. He reached for her hand, not as a contractual gesture, not as a requirement, but as a choice. His fingers intertwined with hers, warm and certain. In that moment, the arrangement that began with ink and obligation shifted into something alive, something fragile, something hopeful. Outside the office windows, the clouds finally broke, and a faint beam of late afternoon sunlight spilled across the floor. Two signatures had bound their lives, but now it was their hearts choosing to move forward together. The shift between them after that conversation was subtle at first, but it changed everything. Ethan was still structured, still precise in his words and gestures, but there was a softness woven into his presence now, a warmth that had never been there before. Lena felt it the next morning when they walked into the dining room together. One of the staff greeted them with a polite bow, and Ethan glanced at her with a quiet, reassuring smile before taking his seat. It was a small thing, but it meant more than grand gestures ever could. Over the next week, the atmosphere in the Ward estate shifted. Lena was no longer walking through the halls like an outsider. She spoke more freely with the staff. She asked Ethan thoughtful questions about his company, and he listened when she shared her perspective. Their breakfasts became conversations. Their evenings became moments of calm rather than obligation. The tension that once hovered between them had been replaced by something slow, gentle, and unexpectedly genuine. But the true test arrived the following Thursday at a fundraising gala hosted by one of Ethan's major investors. The event was lavish, held in a ballroom filled with glass chandeliers and soft orchestral music. It was Lena's first large public appearance since the board confrontation, and she felt the weight of every glance as she stepped inside with Ethan. He noticed her shoulders tense and leaned closer. "I am right here," he said quietly. And he was. Every time someone approached with probing questions or sharp curiosity, Ethan stayed beside her, answering with calm authority. Yet he also gave her room to speak for herself, trusting her to handle conversations without stepping in unnecessarily. Still, not everyone greeted her with kindness. Halfway through the evening, Daniel Ward appeared at the edge of the ballroom, watching them with a calculating expression. He approached with a glass of champagne in hand. "Looks like you are adjusting quickly," Daniel said to Lena, his tone smug. Not bad for someone who was serving drinks not long ago. Before Lena could respond, Ethan stepped forward. "Daniel, enough." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What? I am only recognizing her progress?" "There is a difference between recognition and belittlement," Ethan said, his voice firm and steady. "And you know it." Daniel smirked, but this time his expression faltered when Lena turned to him, her voice calm but unwavering. "Mr. Ward," she said, "your opinion does not define my worth. I understand that I am new to this world, but I am learning every day. And I am not afraid of hard work." Daniel blinked, taken aback. "You think this world rewards hard work?" "No," Lena said, "but I think it respects perseverance. And I will keep showing up, regardless of who doubts me." A few people nearby paused their conversations, glancing in their direction. Daniel's jaw tightened, clearly realizing he had lost the upper hand. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Ethan exhaled gently. "You were remarkable," he said softly. Lena smiled faintly. "I only said the truth. And that," Ethan replied, "is exactly why I trust you." The rest of the evening passed more smoothly. Several investors approached Ethan to congratulate him on his marriage, speaking with newfound acceptance. Others offered Lena genuine compliments. Her confidence grew with each interaction, no longer overshadowed by fear or uncertainty. When the gala finally ended and they stepped outside into the cool night air, the city lights sparkling around them, Ethan reached for her hand. This time there was no hesitation from either of them. "You handled tonight with more grace than anyone expected," he said, "including me." Lena glanced up at him. "I did not want to disappoint you." "You have never disappointed me," Ethan said. "Not once." They stood beside the car for a moment, the faint hum of traffic filling the quiet between them. Then Ethan took a slow breath, his expression softened by something deeper than duty or gratitude. "I meant what I said before," he told her. "I want our marriage to be real, not because of a contract, not because of public obligation, but because I care for you, and I am proud of you." Her heart tightened in her chest. "I care for you too, Ethan." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Lena froze, breath catching as he opened it to reveal a simple, elegant ring, nothing extravagant, no giant diamonds, just a band that reflected sincerity more than status. "This," Ethan said quietly, "is not part of the contract. This is a choice. My choice." Her eyes blurred with emotion as he held the ring gently between his fingers. "Lena Hart," he continued, "will you stay with me, not because you have to, not because of legal agreements, but because you want to build a future together?" Lena nodded slowly, tears forming. "Yes, Ethan, I want that." He slid the ring onto her finger, replacing the cold symbol of obligation with something warm, something real. She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her, holding her close as the city lights glimmered around them. They entered the car together, no tension, no distance, just two people stepping into a future they had both chosen. The contract had brought them together, but love, honesty, and mutual respect would carry them forward.